All right, everyone. Welcome to this full moon Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for the days surrounding Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. All right, so full moon in Scorpio. If you were expecting me to say Sagittarius, check out that link down below for more information. We're using the actual size of the constellations called True Sidereal Astrology. But yep, if you were to look up at the sky, you will see the full moon in Scorpio. So time of incorporating these qualities of essentially depth into our lives. This is, of course, with ourselves. Excellent time for healing, facing wounds, traumas, inhibitions, doing that transformative work. But as a result of that, of course, also getting deeper with our life experiences and our relationships as well. So this is, of course, a full moon, so it is about balance. Balance here with Taurus, where we've had the sun incorporating both the water energies of Scorpio, but also earth of Taurus. So finding that balance between the deeper values, but then also the earthy and material values and our inner resources, which we have been developing. So with this full moon, we do have a slight opposition up to Mercury. Great time to bring in maybe some of this communication into the depth, learning about it with Mercury. A trine up to Chiron, so maybe some easy energy with healing can come easier with this type of aspect for sure. And a sextile up to Mars, so maybe just a little bit of drive and motivation to do this, maybe feeling a bit of that independence and action with that slight sextile. All right, so let's take a look at this full moon here in more detail when we return. All right, so here is the chart for the full moon. It will be on Tuesday at 10:55 Eastern Time of the Americas. So if you do want to make your calculations for that, that is the exact time of this. So again, this video is for the surrounding days. Essentially, of course, the full moon is the most important thing. It will go exact on Tuesday, but we will be feeling this both Monday and Wednesday as well. So Scorpio, the Scorpion, right? Time of now incorporating these qualities. And if you look at a scorpion, it has these defense mechanisms, right? It's got claws, but also a stinger and a really hard shell, right? So I think a good way of simplifying what this constellation is about becoming aware of our own defense mechanisms. Of course, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and quite literally. So with this, I think with all full moons, it's always a great time of illumination. That solar energy is bouncing off of the moon, and it can illuminate these qualities of our life. So where do we have defense mechanisms? Now, defense mechanisms are a healthy thing. We do need them, obviously. So there are useful and necessary times of using them. And this can certainly be a great time to do that, to cultivate the healthy defense mechanisms. But at the same time, there's likely some mechanisms that are preventing us from getting into our deeper values, into the deeper aspects of life and of ourselves and of our core and of our being. So this can be anything, right? We all have different defense mechanisms. Even in the context, it can change, but some examples might be fear. Fear is a very common defense mechanism. It's meant to protect us, obviously. So acknowledging, for example, our fears at this time. Also, any walls that come up that are preventing us from engaging with life in some way or with our relationships in some way. So becoming aware of the walls we put up, right? These types of things. And you could even look at it like there's what's called 4Fs. The 4Fs, the types of defense mechanisms psychologically that we tend to have as human beings. This is from the psychological standpoint. So the 4Fs are essentially fight, which are the defense mechanisms of taking action and literally fighting, right? The things that maybe we're afraid of or that we're protecting ourselves from. There's also flight, which is running away from them. All right, these two are like the fight-flight response that most of us are aware of. But there's also fawn, which is the defense mechanism of trying to be nice and befriend and kind of lower ourselves to also defend ourselves. And that's very apparent in social situations when the fawn comes out. And there's also freeze, right, which is avoiding, right? So avoiding life, escaping from life, that type of thing. So seeing if there is any of these 4Fs, right, that you have. We have them all. Again, there's healthy uses of them, but then there's also maybe a default that we use. Do we fight in certain situations? Do we flight from certain situations? Do we fawn in certain ones? And do we freeze in others, right? So I think becoming aware of this is an excellent way of working with Scorpio. But again, whatever the context is for you personally, whether it's psychologically, whether it's even spiritually, right? This is a great time of diving deep within ourselves spiritually, becoming aware of the deeper aspects of ourself, the core of who we are. And again, accepting them, becoming aware of them and accepting them is the transformative element of Scorpio. All right, so yeah, great time to do this, whatever the context might be in your particular life. And again, balance. All full moons, while it is a time of integrating these healthy qualities of, in this case, Scorpio, which, by the way, when we are, letting those walls come down, that's what builds deeper connections with ourselves and with our relationships and with life, right? So this vulnerability, all right, this vulnerability, which leads to trust and leads to those deeper connections. So this could be very transformative, very, freeing, and also, again, very rich in our experiences when we are diving deep with this Scorpio energy. So with this, of course, it is an opposition up to the sun. So yes, it has been a very earthy time, right? And this is the natural balance between the deeper dimensions of Scorpio, which is water, balanced with earth. These past couple weeks have been great for developing this sense of self-reliance or self-worth, cultivating our inner resources, right? These inner gifts, these natural resources, this inner strength that comes from self-worth, self-value. So with the opposition, it is an incorporation of both. We can't have healing and transformation without being connected to earth. That's why if you look at most shamanistic practices, you'll see that healing is very much tied with earth. So an incorporation of both. Excellent time to get out into nature, to ground ourselves, to even enjoy the simple pleasures of life, the material pleasures of life, all right, to get into our senses, this type of stuff. And again, most fundamentally anchoring into our beingness, the earthy aspects of ourself, which is our self-value, our self-worth. Because we can't do healing, we can't dive deep, we can't get vulnerable if we don't have that. And vice versa. We can't get into self-worth, self-value if we're not willing to dive deep and see the truth. And again, let those defense mechanisms come down when necessary, in the right time, in the right place. All right, so this is what I think collectively the full moon's about, this incorporation of both energies, Taurus and Scorpio. Okay, so with this, we do have an opposition up to Mercury. So it's a slight opposition, but I think a good way of working with this is to bring in some of the mercurial energies into Scorpio to again, counterbalance it by incorporating it. So Mercury is the planet of our mind and our communication and also our routine. So when it comes to depth, for example, with Mercury, maybe learning about it, right? Getting into the curious side of ourselves, being curious, inquisitive, also flexible, willing to learn. That can, I think, very much facilitate this. Also communication, right? Communicating the depth, the openness, the truth with ourselves, even just writing or automatic writing or speaking, just for ourselves, just getting that energy moving, the mental energy, I think can facilitate that. But of course, also communication and relationships can also obviously help. And then with the routine as well, what are some things we can do with our routine to, again, develop these healthy, deeper connections with life? So I think that's a great way of working with the Mercury side of it. We also do have a trine to Chiron, which I think is going to come quite easy. In fact, it is forming a grand trine with the nodes, suggesting there could be on not a personal level, but you may notice as an undercurrent, there is some momentum being built with our life path, with particularly the things we've been shifting since the beginning of the year, since around late January and February time when we had the eclipses. We got some momentum here with this trine to the nodes. But with Chiron, there is this support for healing. And with Chiron and Pisces, it's been about healing a greater sense of acceptance of what is in our life, of the present moment. So I think this is supporting it. So if you do feel any sense of rejuvenation or healed energy when it comes to your willingness to go with the flow and be present, I think that's very much supporting this as well. But either way, whatever it's regarding, there is this easy energy available to heal, this willingness to see the wounds or, have that vulnerability, which then leads to greater transformation, of course, healing, and rejuvenation with Chiron. All right, so there is a sextile to Mars. It is a minor aspect, but important to note that Mars is in a good harmony with this. I think there is still this energy in the air, this kind of motivation, drive, in the sense of pursuing what we want, taking action to pursue our wants, our needs, and also just maybe just a bit of this, again, willingness to dive deep, because Mars does traditionally rule Scorpio. And so Mars is the planet that wants to dive deep, wants to get to the truth of the matter. So again, easy supportive energy with that. And I do want to mention, however, that this week and going into next week, we have Mars getting very close to the South Node. And so there is this now transformation taking place very soon here, coming up, regarding the masculine energy, this Mars energy. When a planet goes over the South Node, it is the sort of vortex, it's the black hole, it's the void energy. So although Mars is in good aspect, Mars is heading towards this South Node energy, the void energy, which could be depleting it. So anything you can do to be non-attached to what you want, to the Mars energy, to the masculine energy, is going to facilitate this transformation process. We will feel this more so later in the week, but I did want to mention that, and I will talk more about this conjunction. All right, so that's the full moon in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the surrounding days here for those of you who do want to see. As we approach the full moon, we will have the moon in Libra on Monday. So Monday is a really good day, I think, for the relationships, finding that cooperation, give and take, mutuality, equality, and all in all, just finding balance in our life, bringing areas into balance that might be out of balance. This is a really good way of working with that. And the heightened part of this will, of course, be on Tuesday. So there could be a shift or pivot. Oftentimes with a full moon, with the awareness that comes in, this sort of status check and this incorporation of energy, we decide to maybe make a shift in our life in some way, maybe even let something go. And maybe like the past 2 weeks, taking on a sort of new direction now for the upcoming 2 weeks or even the upcoming 6 months if it's a larger cycle for you. So there's a pivot, there's a shift. And this could be then in a continued incorporation of how we can bring in the Scorpio energies for the next 2 weeks and 6 months. All right, and then as we get into Wednesday, we will get into more of the Ophiuchus energy, which is the step above Scorpio, which is specifically the healing. So great day, even though it is for this whole early part of the week, but great day on Wednesday to really get into the actual healing aspects of it, whatever that might mean for you personally. Okay, doing the work with the healing, allowing that to come up, and then again, the acceptance of the wounds or whatever comes up is, of course, what leads to the healing. All right, and Mercury will be sextiling Chiron, but this really confirms what we talked about regarding Chiron being an easy aspect to the full moon, but there could be maybe some things we're learning about healing on Wednesday. All right, so that's the full moon, 10:55 Eastern time on Tuesday, the incorporation of Scorpio and Taurus, the earth and water, the depth, healing, truth, vulnerability, transformation, grounded in earth, right? Grounded in our inner stability, our inner strength, our inner sense of self-worth and value, which is really what this whole cycle is about developing. But of course, we can't develop that without a clear sense of what are our deeper values and our deeper selves. All right, so have a fantastic full moon, everyone. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I will see you all on Wednesday for the daily forecast. Take care.